I took my family to the Oregon coast last week, and we went and saw a lot of things that Emily is not going to remember. But that's okay, because we remember them, and we'll have the pictures and the video to prove that we took her to these fun places. So there's that. One thing that I learned, though, on this trip, I always used to think that when you're going to take a picture that you know the best lenses are usually ones that have a tighter focal length and to focus on the details and to take close-up shots. But when you're going to the coast, a lot of the beautiful scenery is actually you want something that's really wide, and that's why when I was on this trip that I really kind of use this lens for most of my pictures. It's a Sigma 10 to 20 millimeter wide angle lens. I never really used this before, maybe because in this area there just isn't really a lot of good landscapes that are really interesting, or maybe I'm just too used to those landscapes that I never really wanted to take a picture of anything. They can really capture a lot of the beauty of an area just because you're just getting more of the image. And so this isn't really always a good lens if you're going to focus on details, because it's just capturing so many details and capturing so much of what you're photographing. So not great for that, but I think it also surprised me in that way as well. But I wanted to show you some of the pictures that I took with this lens so you can kind of get an idea of what you could do with this. So here's just obviously going to go to the coast, you take a picture of the ocean. So this is a picture that I took of the ocean, and this is it's a pretty good image. I think it turned out well. Tried to focus on composing it, into thirds and such. But the ocean is always a good subject for landscapes, and a wide angle lens is probably almost always the best option. And one thing also in the woods, you wouldn't think necessarily that in the woods that you would want something wide, because there's just so many things that you might be able to focus on, you might be able to zoom in on. But if you really back up, you can really see some really beautiful things at a wide angle. So this is a picture of just a river. I was standing on a bridge. This image in particular, actually, there was a lot of signs and posts and things for the state park that they put here. And I removed some of them, and you might be able to tell where things were if it wasn't perfectly edited. But so there was a whole bunch of signs in there that I took out. But anyway, I felt like this one turned out pretty well, and so did this one. I think I like this one too. And Beth actually said that she thought this was her favorite image. But I don't know. I like it. It's good. And I like how in this one that the trees, the sun's coming through the trees there. And this one I feel like that you can see the warping on the image a little bit more. Kind of around on this side of the image, you can see like this tree. It looks like it's a little bit warped. So there's a little bit of curve on the edges here. I don't really mind that so much. I don't think that's really a big deal all the time. Maybe sometimes you might want to straighten out the image to make it look more clean, or I don't know why you would want to do that necessarily. But maybe if you're taking pictures of architecture, like in this image, if you straighten this image out, maybe it'll look a little bit better. Because with architecture, you're working with really straight lines, and so for that you wouldn't want a lot of bowing because it would look really unnatural. But for something like the forest, things are, a little wild and scraggly, so maybe not as big of a deal to have some curving in the image. So, but with architecture, it kind of does make sense that you want to have the image, the lines all being straight. So, now for this other image that I took, kind of took it on the spur of the moment, and it's just a picture of my daughter with a wide-angle lens. And I thought it turned out really well for what it was. We're just sitting in the kitchen, and I snapped the picture. And normally with a portrait, you want something that's like a 70 to 100 millimeters, and that's usually what it would be considered professional. You use that focal length just because it looks the best on the human face. But I have to say this though, that if you're using like kind of a fisheye lens like this is, where it's going to kind of warp the image a little bit, and it's really wide, so you're capturing a lot of other things around the subject. The thing that it does is that if the subject is making kind of a funny face, like here, Emily's making sort of a sort of a goofy looking face. It's sort of that fisheye lens, or that warping can kind of accentuate that a little bit more. And I like that. I like it that, if you have a subject that's kind of being a little bit goofy, being a little bit funny, that sort of warping the face of that person can add to the character of that image. So in the character of that picture. So anyway, I learned a lot using this lens, and I think that I'm going to use it more often now. I don't know if for video, but certainly for pictures, that I'm definitely going to think about what I can do with a wide-angle lens. And so anyway, just something to think about if you're taking pictures, that maybe you don't have to stray too far away from the wide-angle lens like I had been, and you might find some surprising results with a wide-angle lens. You can get this lens for about $300 or so. And so it's not like it's a really expensive lens, all things considered. Some lenses are way more expensive. I have a lot more expensive lenses than this. So, but I was really surprised at how well this did for just kind of snapping pictures here and there. So, anyway, let me know what you think. I'll be, I think, putting these images up elsewhere, so like an Instagram or something. But anyway, let me know what you think.